Good morning and welcome to the Community and Housing Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Members will see the first item on the agenda is appointment of chair, and this item is just to let the committee know, which members should be aware that at the annual meeting, the recent meeting, Council determined that the True Independent Group will chair this committee, and the committee has advised that Councillor Marion Bateman will continue to chair the committee for the municipal year. Thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. So we'll go on to the agenda, and it's, well, first of all, I must thank you. I forgot to do that, which is dreadful of me. Thank you for your support in the past year, and hopefully we can go forward together in the same frame of mind as before. Right, agenda item 2 is an appointment of vice chair, and do we have any nominations? Right, we have a nomination for Councillor Rush. Do we have a seconder? Thank you. We have a seconder. Any other nominations? No. So can we have a show of hands for Councillor Rush? I think that's unanimous, Karen. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, we'll now go on to apologies. I think we've had quite a few, haven't we, Kerry?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Dale Sylvester, and we've had a few substitutions. We've got Councillor Ryan McEwen for Councillor Sean Bibby, Councillor Chrissy G for Councillor Gillian Brockley, and Councillor Gina Madison for Councillor Pam Banks.
Thank you, Kerry.
And apologies from Councillor Ant Turton also.
Okay. Thank you. So we go on to agenda item 4, declarations of interest, including whipping declarations. Do we have any declarations? No? No, thank you. We go on to agenda item 5, the minutes from pages 5 to 8. Does anybody want to comment on the minutes before we ask for a mover? Thank you.
Sorry.
Just on page 5, please. It's got me down as being also present. I'm just wondering, as I was there in my capacity as a cabinet member, if that could be amended to it, please. A small point.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Do we have any other comments on the minutes before I ask for a mover? No. Could we have a mover then, please, with the slight alteration that would be? Thank you. And a seconder. Thank you very much. We all show? Thank you. Agenda item 6, forward work programme and action tracking, pages 9 to 20. And we're over to Kerry. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members will see the current forward work programme shown on page 13 of the agenda. Since the last meeting, the future meeting dates as agreed at the AGM have been added to the forward work programme, and it is proposed that we have a meeting, the Chair and the Vice Chair meet with officers usually around the recess time so that we can populate the forward work programme and bring a fuller forward work programme to the committee from September. There is just one amendment to the forward work programme, and that is members will be aware that the communal heating report is listed on the agenda today. It is proposed to bring another report to the committee in July, and that is because out of the 8 areas, 6 are on the report for today, so the remaining 2 will be brought back to the committee in July. Moving on to the outstanding actions from the previous meetings, you will see that the first action there in relation to mould and condensation, following the meeting today, that will be marked as completed, but that's just listed as ongoing. All of the others have been completed, and hopefully you will have received the letters, a copy of the letters that were sent out to DWP and also Welsh Government. I have, on the action relating to void management, I have contacted the chair of the Tenants Federation to ask if they would like to receive copies of our agendas going forward, and also attend meetings as they have in the past, whether they would like to attend or whether they would like to name somebody to attend. So once I have a response on that, I'll let the committee know. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Kate. Does anyone else have any suggestions for the forward work programme? No? In that case, can I have a mover, please, for the Thank you very much, councillor Clayton. Seconder, councillor McKeown. Thank you very much. Could you all vote for the action trafficking and forward work programme, please? Thank you. Right, agenda item 7, communal heating charges. And we're over to the Chief Officer, Vicky Clark. Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. So this is the annual report to seek approval of the communal heating charges for 25-26. The portfolio currently operates 8 communal heating schemes, and this report outlines the proposed charges for 6 of those schemes. There is further work being undertaken to review the charges for Clwyn Aled and Acacia Close, and as Kerry's just alluded to, a further report will be brought to this committee next month in relation to those. So the council's recently renegotiated the tariff to be charged for 25-26 as the previous contract ended in March. The rate chargeable for gas has decreased by approximately 15% over the next 12 months. So communal heating charges are initially paid for by the council through the heating reserve account, and then we collect that from tenants. So the charges are always based on the prior year's usage alongside current gas prices, with the aim to ensure that we get full cost recovery for each scheme. So given the need to achieve full cost recovery for communal heating, we do need to wait for the final gas invoices from the previous year to be processed, the new contract gas price to be agreed, and then obviously the timing for those proposed changes to be brought through the committee cycle for approval. So this means that the new charges each year are implemented in August. So previously the council had a multi-year agreement which it meant that tenants benefited from more certainty around the charges. However, as members are aware, given the volatility in gas prices and the fact that gas prices agreed by the energy team are currently on annual contracts, tenants are unfortunately seeing large changes to their weekly charges in year. And again, we do need to ensure that we full cost recovery against that heating reserve account. So as such, although the rateable charge for gas has reduced, but like I said, by around approximately 15% over the next 12 months, the weekly charges for tenants will still need to increase from August, as the weekly charge due to be paid in the first half of the year, so from April through to July, is not sufficient currently for full recovery of those charges over the full financial year. So given the significant increases a couple of years ago that tenants were subject to due to the volatility in the market, we did agree with members at that time that we would take out the communal area heating element for each scheme, and this does continue to be the case. We are currently undergoing work on communal schemes to allow us to move to individual billing for all tenants. So a couple of schemes have already been completed and are now receiving individual billing. So they're the schemes at Panton Place and part of Glenamorfa Court. In terms of the remaining schemes, the work is ongoing to install heat meters. So we've installed the heat meters on 3 schemes and they're listed in the report. And we're now in the usage testing phase. So essentially what we want to do is just test the accuracy of those meter readings before we move to separate billing. The work on the remaining schemes is due to be completed by October. And where possible, we are also trying to install additional heating controls within tenants' homes so they can control and regulate their own heating. So in the appendix attached to the report, we've outlined the proposed charges for 25-26 and then the annual price change for each scheme. I'm not sure if Rachel's got anything to add. No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions on this talk from members? Thank you, councillor Rush.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I just ask for the heights in Flint? Why is there 3 different, obviously there are 3 high-rise flats. Why is there a difference in the prices of the weekly charge?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. The 3 high-rise blocks in Flint are made up quite differently. So we've got Richard Heights and Bolingbroke Heights. They've got a linked heating system. So they've got district pipe work underneath the ground. Also, we've got Castle Heights that's got a community centre. So again, a bit of a different layout. The 3 blocks have got different floors. So Castle and Richard are similar, whereas Bolingbroke has more floors as well. So they're all slightly different in terms of the layout and usage as well. Overall, performance is quite high in terms of thermal retention. It's okay. Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions from anyone? No. Can I just ask the tenants who are already being charged for actual usage? I think you mentioned Hampton Place and one other. How has that been received generally by the tenants? You don't know? No. The only fear is that some tenants would perhaps turn the heating off because they are, you know, afraid of the extra charges.
I mean, just to reassure members, so we're now, like I say, in the usage testing phase for the 3 schemes that have just been completed. And what we are doing is identifying where we have concerns about individual tenants. So where the bills seem relatively high, what we're doing is there are staff from Sean's team visiting those tenants and just going through how, you know, I suppose some of this is about teaching the tenants to use the heating appropriately, and you know, that they are being visited. So where we see that there might be an anomaly around a particular tenant, and generally on the 3 that we currently use a testing phase, I think we're talking about 2 or 3 tenants across all 3 schemes. They are being visited and being provided with support, so that, like I say, when they do get to individual billing, they don't get hit with a really high price.
So you're able really to keep an eye on them more. Sorry, Sean.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, and just to add to what Vicky was mentioning there, we do that for all tenants across Flintshire, whether they're in a communal block or not. So we assist them with their energy suppliers. We look at, as Vicky's mentioned, the usage of heating in their home, the best times to heat their home, ventilate, etc. So the energy team meet them on a regular basis. We also do some sort of clever mapping in terms of what those block usages should be on averages, and visit those that may be a little bit higher or lower. We will be monitoring tenants that will be turning the heating off in the communal areas, and there might be a genuine reason for that, but it might be that they need some further support. So again, we'll be advising all the tenants of this to say these heating controls we're putting in, they're clever things, they're intelligent sort of systems now that we've got. So they'll flag to us any concerns, and that means we can just support our tenants and make sure everything's okay. So yeah, I think we're in a good place on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. That's reassuring. Any more questions for anyone? No? If that's the case, we'll go over to the recommendation, which is...
Apologies, Chair. I've just noticed that the recommendation it mentions cabinet and not scrutiny, because it says cabinet approved. That's my mistake. I didn't spot that in the report. So obviously it's cabinet that approve it, not scrutiny. So we'll just need to amend that recommendation.
Right, thank you very much indeed. So the recommendation is that scrutiny approve changes.
Sorry, not approve, support.
Support the changes.
Sorry.
Don't worry, we'll get there in the end. To the current heating charges at council properties with communal heating schemes as outlined in the report. All changes take effect from the 4th of August. Could you please show? In favour? I think that looks unanimous. Yes. Thank you very much indeed. And we'll go on to agenda item 8, the Housing Support Grant Programme, pages 29 to 52. I think we're going over to Martin, are we, Martin?
Thanks, Chair. Morning, members. Yeah, this is a every other year report that's presented to committee, outlining the aims and objectives of Housing Support Grant, how we're utilising it, and any emerging issues or updates in terms of grant framework and our direction of travel with commissioning services. Members will be aware that Housing Support Grant is an annual grant. On occasion, we get some kind of certainty around 3-year periods to help us to plan with our expenditure. And it's one of the few grants that we received from Welsh Government that's actually increased over recent years. It used to be known as the Supporting People Grant, with a little bit of Rent Smart Wales funding as well. But over recent years, there's been a number of grant streams that have been brought together and now clustered under the Housing Support Grant Framework. Our annual allocation from Welsh Government has now increased by just short of £1 million. So for the current financial year, we are receiving roughly 9.6 million from Welsh Government. The purpose of the grant is to prevent and alleviate and relieve homelessness, to promote independent living and tenancy sustaining housing sustainment. But it also picks up alongside that issues around mental health, substance misuse, offending behaviours, domestic abuse as well. Detailed in Appendix 1 is a summary of our spend plan. Every year we have to review our plan in terms of the services that we're commissioning. There's an ongoing process of retendering for services as they come up to the end of their contract, or as our requirements and needs assessment changes, we might reprofile some services or go out to tender again for them. So you can see within that summary where we are spending our money and the type of services that we fund, ranging from domestic abuse refuges to housing first services to supported housing, along with services like target hardening for people who are experiencing domestic abuse and housing related support via community outreach services, which we often refer to as floating support. Demand for housing support services is significant, as you can see on page 33. It's high, continues to be high. We're doing well in terms of sustaining a relatively small waiting list for our floating support services. However, with our supported housing services, there are significant waiting lists. We are in the process of beginning a retendering exercise for some of our supported housing for single people. That will progress later in this year. And over the last 12 months, we've recommissioned a number of supported housing services for families. We had plans last year to develop a complex needs supported housing service. However, we were unsuccessful with being able to appoint a approved partner. The standard of bids that we received and the aims and objectives we wanted to achieve, those two things didn't marry. So we are revisiting the specification for that service, and we will be going out again to retender for that later this year. Spend against the grant, as on page 35, we were underspent by 100,000-ish last year. That's because of the fact that we didn't commission the complex needs service that I referenced a moment ago. And it's not uncommon for local authorities to underspend on this grant, particularly in recent years. Whilst it's great that Welsh Government are chucking more and more money at us, that's fantastic and to be very much warmly welcomed. There's quite a lot of work that goes into spending that money to make sure it goes to the right places and it's in line with contract rules and financial regs. So we were underspent last year on the back of a big increase of funding. We are projecting at the moment with where we're up to an underspend for this year, although we are working really, really closely to maximise the income for council services and to stabilise our commission services with our housing support partners. Welsh Government have been really clear that in terms of where they want the money to be going, the intention of the grant is well documented: homeless prevention, early intervention, independent living, but there's also a big focus from Welsh Government on stabilising the sector. There's been a lot of feedback from the housing support charitable sector that working conditions are really tough at the moment. We know that ourselves with the council. Demand is up, complexity of need is up, and trauma within the workforce is up as well, as we're working with more complex people with more challenging behaviours. And as a result, councils and local charities and national charities are seeing workforce retention is a challenge and recruitment is a challenge. On the back of that, Welsh Government are doing some really good work through the Ending Homelessness National Advisory Board on developing recruitment campaigns. Certainly our recent recruitment on the back of our restructure, which is part funded by Housing Support Grant, has gone really well. We've used those national resources, we've used the campaign, and we've brought some really good staff in. Welsh Government are also really clear this money should be ensuring that every single person who works within the sector for housing support and homelessness is receiving at the very least the real living wage. We've been doing that for several years. We've got no concerns in that regard. We give enough money to all of our providers to be able to do the real living wage for all their frontline staff, and we sense check that rigorously every year. Potentially not the case in all local authorities, but for Flintshire, we have complete confidence in that. We've also been able to review some of our contracts and make it a requirement for service providers to offer more enhanced wellbeing support packages for staff. So counselling services, reflective practice services, and other activities around training and development that will make sure that the people who are working in Flintshire delivering our services are well skilled, of the highest quality, and most importantly, resilient. Because that's the buzzword in our sector at the moment, resilience. In terms of emerging risk issues or changes in direction for Welsh Government, there is a piece of work that they've asked us to do around services that relate to learning disabilities. Originally, when the Supporting People grant many years ago was developed, it was very focused on learning disability services. Over time, that has changed, and Supporting People has obviously now morphed into Housing Support Grant, and Welsh Government want to be satisfied that all of our spend is going to the front end of the homelessness fight and on independent living. At the moment, we fund around about £200,000 worth of floating support services, which are delivered by the council for people with learning disabilities, and we also fund about £960,000 for supported housing services for people with learning disabilities. Welsh Government are asking us to sense check our service delivery for those types of projects against the qualifying criteria and eligibility for the grant. And as a big focus of the grant is on promoting independent living, and our learning disabilities portfolio is more long-term semi-support stroke care type settings, we're going to be doing a review on the eligibility for those types of services within the Housing Support Grant. What we're not doing is withdrawing funding from those services without a clear plan and passing a cost pressure on to social services colleagues or doing anything to destabilise those services. We've started the conversation with social care colleagues about us exploring other services that social services currently deliver that do more closely align with the eligibility criteria for Housing Support Grant that we will have to demonstrate we are laser sharp in our focus on. So those conversations have started. We can mitigate the financial risk for our social care colleagues. We're confident of that, and it provides us a really good opportunity for us to look at what other services we can fund through the Housing Support Grant to ease those potential cost pressures. But it's worth me mentioning that because it is a risk, but we've already started the mitigation process. The only other thing that I wanted to flag before taking any questions is we always like case studies. We can talk about numbers and budgets and policy intentions, but there's 3 case studies at the end of this report as Appendix 2 that I think really kind of highlight some of the great work that we can do and how this fund works its way through into the community for the benefit of local residents, and most importantly, how it eases pressure on our homelessness expenditure for statutory services like temporary accommodation, because we need to be doing the prevention where we get the chance to do it. We are good as a local authority, and our partners are good at preventing homelessness when we have the chance to do so, and are also really good with supporting people on into independent living, and hopefully breaking that cycle of revolving door homelessness for some of our residents. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Are there any questions? Councillor G.
This is probably something we should, excuse me, I woke up with a sore throat. Something we could take up outside, but I have got a resident, I know it's personal to me, and I think he's been through everything. He's about to become homeless from a private house. I've spoke to both of you about this and everybody else. At what point do you class a person as homeless? Is it actually when they're on the streets, or is it when do you intervene to actually give them a property? We can't offer him IMO, he's HMO, one of your staff has offered him that. He's got 3 dogs, cancer and multiple needs. His house has been, you know, changed with all the chairlifts and everything. So I just wonder at what point or where he would fall, where I can point him in the right direction.
I've got your email. I've been away from the office for a few days, so I've not had a chance to respond. In terms of statutorily, someone is homeless or at risk of homelessness and therefore eligible for duties within 56 days of when that homelessness is going to occur. That doesn't mean that we just leave people to it. These housing support grant services are exactly the types of services that we want to parachute in to help people before they hit those statutory services. When it comes to the point that the person is homeless, and that's either homeless as a result of being asked to leave by friends and family, domestic abuse, or in the case of private rented evictions or mortgage repossessions, at the point at which that legal process is concluded, we would be looking to do a suitability assessment and offering temporary accommodation. HMO may have been mentioned. The resident would have the opportunity to come back and explain why HMO wouldn't be suitable. Dogs can be factored in within reason, within homeless accommodation placements, and we would only offer accommodation that is suitable. So if someone has significant physical disabilities, we will be identifying properties that are adapted, and as required, getting that signed off by occupational therapists as well.
Clayton.
Thank you, Chair. I was just concerned about the underspend on the complex needs. Is it possible to notify this committee when we've actually engaged somebody of suitable quality, so that we're reassured that the people in that group are being catered for?
Yeah, that's fine. That's not a problem at all. A lot of our services, we have to kind of push through the cabinet approval sign-off process as a result of the contract values and the length of terms that we issue for our services. So they will be in the public domain as well. And we can share details of service specification. What some local authorities do, and we choose not to in Flintshire, is they over-profile their spend plan. So if they've got a £10 million envelope, they will identify £11 million worth of projects and allocate a budget of an extra million through their council fund, because it is not uncommon to underspend on these type of services. We don't have the flex to operate that type of approach, so we're never happy giving money back, but we know that that's a risk, and we control that to a tolerable level, so that we're not handing back hundreds of thousands. It's a limited amount.
Thank you, Martin. Any more questions at all? No? Well, I think it is a good news story that the grant has been increased by, I mean, my math's terrible, but I think it's about 12%, is it, extra? Which I'm sure many departments in local authority would welcome. And I'm sure it's in safe hands with Martin. Thank you very much indeed. Could we have, I'll go to the recommendations. There are 2. One, to note the overview of the Housing Support Grant Programme and wide range of services delivered locally. And 2, to support the Housing Support Grant Spend Plan for 25-26. Do we have a mover for those, please? Thank you, councillor Clayton. A seconder? Councillor Rush. Could you all show, please? Thank you. Right, we now go on to agenda item 9, and this is the mould and condensation update. And is it Sean we're going to, or are we going to Vicky first? Sean.
Thank you, Chair. What we've done with this paper, we've combined the mould and condensation update along with some disrepair stats as well, as that was requested of us. There are some repeat messages in this paper because we've presented, obviously this is an update, we've presented a number of papers before, but I think it's quite important that we just go through them and remind ourselves of what's been said and the journey we're on. So just moving over to the page, obviously a bit of background there in terms of mould and condensation and what it is continues to be a serious concern for us, especially in Flintshire as a landlord. As I've mentioned before on the WHQS work streams, we're doing more and more to our properties, to our tenants' homes, to make them more thermally sort of efficient in terms of that heat retention. And that's where ventilation and heating is critical, really. And again, we're going to be talking about mould and condensation more and more as this update paper conveys. So it also details in terms of what we need to do from an asset component failure perhaps, or there's other concerns that we need to address. And what we do is we always work with our tenants to make sure that we address the problem. That's the ultimate aim. Just moving over to 102, obviously we, the Housing Assets Service, are responsible for all the HRA stock across the council. And because we're always aiming to achieve the higher standards, such as WHQS, we go above WHQS standards in Flintshire where we can and where we can afford to. It states all tenants should have the opportunity to live in good quality homes. 103, following the tragic case in Rochdale, obviously we did bring a briefing note to this scrutiny committee that just detailed the process of when a tenant has any concerns, or whether we see any concerns, what is the process for actioning them through the repairs process. It is critical, as I've mentioned again, that the report comes from the tenant into our contact centre. And what we do with the teams there, we prioritise how quickly do we need to get out, what information can the tenant provide to us, whether it be the mould or condensation is in a specific room, a specific area, is it frequent, has it come back before, is it a repeating issue that we need to be aware of, and any pictures as well. They're all useful. It's all useful information that we need conveyed by the tenant. And also their availability as well, because we're doing obviously repairs by appointment now as well. So again, the paper goes into a lot of detail in terms of how do we go about actioning there. What we do when we get a report of mould and condensation, we get the tenants a guide out as quickly as possible, which is within this pack, and we'll talk through it later. And what that does, it just provides that tenant some reassurance that yes, we are coming. Here's a guide, supporting guide that will help you until we get there. We do have a number of contractors that go out and assess the sort of the priority of that repair, whether it be a repair or whether it just be the way the tenant is ventilating and heating their home. And we provide a cleaning service as well. So as you can imagine, there could be some condensation mould that has formed on the ceiling that the tenant can't reach. So what our teams do, we go out, we assess, we clean, we treat, and then we undertake a detailed survey based on priority. So that's detailed within the report. Just moving over to 106, again, you'll see why we're going to be talking about this more and more. So in 2022, we had approximately 450 reports to the council of mould and condensation. Now we're looking at around about 850 plus. So what we're finding is the more and more we undertake these improvement works, and this has been a concern we've raised with Welsh Government, and we understand the aims and the reasons why we need to get these properties up to an A. They're going to create other problems for us because the stock we have in Flintshire across Wales is the oldest in the UK. So as you can imagine, there's a number of challenges there. We have over 7,000 houses, 7,400 houses that will have unique characteristics that we need to overcome. So we've allocated a budget of 500k towards the surveying, the cleaning and undertaking minor repairs. And that is probably only going to go up as we follow the journey in terms of WHQS and decarbonisation. Just blending in the housing disrepair update there. So again, we have a number of tenants that are approached by claimant solicitors. I give an example a number of years ago where, unfortunately, a solicitor had gained access to a tenant's home. I believe it was in your ward, Chair, under the false pretenses that they actually worked for the council and were getting to sign some documentation. So again, we wrote to that company through the trading standards regulations as well. We do have a number of claimant solicitors that, unfortunately, will advise the tenant that there's no win, no fee, but they don't go into the detail of, well, what happens if that tenant loses? And again, just to remind everyone of a case a number of years ago, a tenant was charged £20,000 worth of defence costs from the landlord. So as you can imagine, if a claim came into our team, we've got a number of surveyors, inspectors, our contact centre, our legal teams, we're all investigating into this case. We're also we go out and do some site visits, inspections, survey reports. And if we find that the tenant hasn't followed the process in terms of the logging a repair with the council, then potentially when we get to court, the judge might throw it out. And that's what has been the case. And we'll move over to some stats. So again, the tenants aren't fully informed of all the risks associated with bringing a claim against the council. And what you find is when we actually go and visit the tenant and explain to them what they've entered into, as in you've entered a claim against the council, are you fully aware of the risks? A high percentage want to come out of that claim with the council, but unfortunately they can't because they've signed all the documentation. So again, we've got a leaflet that we send out to tenants on a regular basis. We are a council, we're not a private landlord. We're there to support our tenants. If they log a repair, we will complete it as quickly as possible. But the safest thing they can do is contact us if they've got any concerns, not enter into a disrepair claim against the council, against their landlord. There are occasions where potentially they would in terms of a private landlord, and that's why a lot of these things have been set up. Renting at Homes Wales Act, for example. But as a council, we're there to work with our tenants and for our tenants ultimately. So the paper goes into a lot of detail there. Just moving over to 108, you'll see the current disrepair stats. That's come down quite a bit over the years, and I think that's because of this success of the team, what we do, how we focus on the claims that come in. So you'll see 29 disrepair claims were received last year. 2 claims were withdrawn because they were invalid. So again, potentially we could recharge those tenants for our costs up to that date. 3 claims are currently dormant, so there's no actions. We have settled 2 claims. And again, the average compensation you'll see there is well below the £1,000 sort of threshold for the claims courts, etc. So yeah, and 22 claims are being successfully defended. And 27 claims that are historical still being defended. So we do have some that are still on track, still live, but the team are very good. But ultimately, we just want to get the repairs done. As soon as the tenants log those repairs with us, we just want to get there and get the work done as soon as possible. There are times where a tenant will log a repair and it does take us some investigation work. We might have to take some plaster work off or do some further surveying or investigation before we get to the root cause. We might have to wait a period of time. We might have to wait for some bad weather, or if it's a leak, for the rain to come. So that's what we have to do. Sometimes it does take a bit of time to assess what the other repair is, but we'll always track that repair through to completion. On the open housing system that we use, no repair that any tenant logs with us can be deleted. It will always remain there, and it needs to be actioned by our teams accordingly. So again, quite a lot of detail in the report, but again, on the conclusion at the end, we want our tenants to work with us, and I ask that every councillor member encourages the tenants to do so. As soon as they see a concern with their asset, with their home, report it to us before it gets worse, and we can action it. And I've provided the number on the report as well for any tenants that may view this report online. Just moving over to the documents that I've provided, we have refreshed the controlling condensation and mold guide. I really like what it is now. I like the images that we've used. In the past, we've used some real images that some tenants can't relate to. But if you walk through, take yourself through the document, it talks about what tenants can do as well, just to assist with controlling maybe high levels of moisture. Again, it talks about keeping an eye out for leaks, drying clothes in a ventilated room or outside. The use of extractor fans. Again, we install extractor fans and full ventilation systems as well in our properties. Airing the property regularly. Again, even when it's cold, it's good to get that dry air in and that moisture out. And also cleaning and just keeping on top of the mold and condensation can help. You can get some products available from hardware or DIY stores, but it's always going to be about how do you ventilate and heat your home. So it's a really useful guide. We're tracking where that goes when it gets sent, and obviously we're visiting tenants, and we're bringing guides with us as well to talk through. And the final attachment I've got there is the housing disrepair leaflet that we send out to all tenants across Flintshire. And again, it says in big bold writing, please contact Flintshire County Council first. That's the safest thing our tenants can do. And that's it for an update, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. I do like this guide that you've got, the new guide. It's quite punchy, isn't it? I must admit, having seen it, I wiped down the mirrors in my bathroom this morning after I had a shower, which I normally don't do. Councillor Helen Brown.
Thank you. And just on the back of that with the disrepair, what you'll see, you'll get a lot of the companies that are on social media asking people to contact them. And what they are saying is that the minute that they take over your case and you sign the paperwork, do not let Flintshire County Council into your property, which then that is technically their downfall when it gets to court. So that is important to get that out there. And obviously, if you see these people on Facebook, as we often do, is to make sure that they do repair to Flintshire County Council, any damage, any damp in their properties. And I'd also like to thank Councillor Alan Marshall for putting this paper onto the Scrutiny Committee, because it's highlighted a lot of things that we do well. And obviously we can promote how you can keep your house damp free as best as possible. So yes, I do thank him for that, but it's really important to let the workforce into the property to address any concerns and not take the advice off these chances. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Alan Marshall, I contacted him, if you remember, because it was a tenant in my ward and Helen came along with me. So that started the ball rolling, and Sean and his team were absolutely fantastic, really, because it was a lot of work, wasn't it, Sean, in that property? But thank everyone that was involved, including Alan Marshall. Thank you. Any more questions? No? No? Well, we'll go to the recommendation. And there's only one, and that's to endorse the contents of the report and to support housing assets to continue to manage mould and condensation service requests, along with the housing disrepair protocol, ensuring the obligations placed upon the council are met. Can I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Tina Claydon, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ryan McCune. Could you all show, please? Thank you. That seems to be unanimous. Thank you very much indeed. Now, agenda item 10, and it's over to Martin again, and it's the homelessness update report. Thank you very much, Martin.
Thank you, Chair. As members know, this is a monthly update. This month we are bringing 2 months worth of data for the April and March period. That was just because of the very early date in the last month for the committee cycle and our need to close down the month and then have a validation period of a few days to make sure that the data that we're providing is accurate. Much of this data also goes to Welsh Government, so it's really important that we get it right. So I'm grateful of committee's patience in allowing us to present 2 months this month. I'm not going to go through every table. I'm going to as always, push the same messages of demand is significant. No one is anticipating that demand is going to drop in any way, shape or form. In fact, it's probably going to increase over time as more progressive legislation is being brought in by Welsh Government. The legislation is already very progressive, but they're taking it several steps further as well, which I think we should welcome. It's great that as a nation we have some really supportive approaches to homelessness through the housing support grant that we discussed earlier, which is all about prevention and move on, but also that the statutory services, when people do need them, are there. The highlight for me when looking over the 2-month period is caseloads for homeless officers continue to be high, but I'm encouraged by the recruitment that we've done, and we now have 5 additional homeless officers who, as of this week and next week, will be starting to take cases on because they've been through the start of their induction programme, and they'll be picking up a few cases to try and ease the burden on the 10 existing homeless officers. I recall that in one of our earlier meetings, Councillor Sean Bibby was really kind of keen to have that committee had updates and wanted to see the caseloads coming down. And I'm confident over the next few months we'll start to see that to be the reality. Numbers in temporary accommodation continue to increase. However, we are seeing significant reductions in hotel accommodation and our reliance on hotel accommodation. And you'll remember when we brought a report in October and November to committee on the back of the Neil Moreland review on homelessness services in Flintshire, we'd outlined a number of options for how we were going to diversify and shift the homeless portfolio away from hotels, which we were very, very heavily reliant on, and developing lots of other forms of homeless accommodation. And you can see in the tables that actually we are starting to turn the tide in that regard. And if we look at numbers in comparison this May to last May, one of the things that we really wanted to do was to increase our forms of temporary accommodation other than homelessness. And actually, over a 12-month period from May 24 to May 25, our temporary accommodation portfolio has grown from approximately 80 units of accommodation to 160. And the pipeline of those types of properties is really, really significant now. So we've increased the workforce in the temporary accommodation team. So we've got new recruits there, and we are in the process of taking on a number of additional units of accommodation, either through taking 3-bed council houses, 5 every quarter, and using them as 2-person house shares. That model offers us a £500,000 efficiency for every 10 people that we place in that form of accommodation. We have a number of HMOs, existing HMOs, very high quality, that D2 have procured. We have one in the D-side area already, that's working well, and another that's coming on in the D-side area in the next few days. They're existing HMOs that aren't going to be increasing the HMO capacity, which was something that members were really, really anxious about, that we didn't want high density of HMOs in certain communities. So all in all, I think this is really encouraging data. I've shared it with the service, given them all a big pat on the back, because whether you're a housing register officer dealing with the front end of presentations for homelessness, whether you're an admin support worker processing the B&B invoices, or a homeless officer, a support worker, or a commissioner, everyone is playing such a massive part in achieving these results under incredibly difficult circumstances. But finally, I think we can see the data's telling us we're going in the right direction. So I'm happy to take any questions that members have got.
Do we have any questions from anyone? No. Can I just ask, how many properties have D2 acquired since their start? And the other one was, are we now up to 21 extra staff, Martin?
So D2 at the moment, I've got 15 single adults across 5 different properties, I believe. They haven't bought all of them. They've had to lease one of them with an option to buy at a later stage. So that's them kind of moving away from their traditional business model, knowing that we're on a tight timeline to achieve some efficiency. So they've been a great partner to work with, and yeah, really, really pleased to have them on board. They've got about 7 or 8 other properties that they are in the final stages of either purchasing ahead of refurb or have purchased and are in the refurb process. So we've got this wonderful spreadsheet where we've got all of the different types of property models that we've got coming online. So D2, the house share model that we've got with council stock, stuff that we're bringing online through leasing with landlords, stuff that we're bringing online for the All Wales leasing scheme that we're now a member of, and also properties that Paul Calland and the development team are acquiring for us through TACP or building through the SHUG programme, Social Housing Grant. And there's a pipeline of about 50 to 55 properties in those various programmes when they bring them all together. There's a risk that even though we've grown the service, that we're not going to be able to jump on all of these properties as and when they're ready, because all of the properties need inventories doing, furnishing. We've got challenges around furniture and sourcing furniture at scale and pace at the moment. And obviously the more properties that we manage as a homeless department, there's more compliance work, there's more hand-holding of residents. So although we've grown the Home Finder team, temporary accommodation numbers from 1 to 6, we're going to have to keep that under consistent review. We might need more staff in the future, but what we will be able to do is a similar exercise to we did back in October, is evidence to Cabinet, to Chief Officers, to Committee, that every time we're bringing on more properties for direct management and moving away from B&B, we can afford to make that business case, because the cost benefit and the cost avoidance is just huge. For every 5 properties, like I said before, that we use for 2-person house shares, even when we factor in staff, utilities costs, furnishing, repairs, our potential council tax liability, non-collection of rent, void periods, we can still make efficiencies of £500,000, because we would be moving 10 people out of B&B or avoiding them from going into B&B, because those 10 people would be 2 people sharing a house 5 times over. So yeah, there's a good pipeline of properties, Chair, across all of the different models that we're operating.
Just going back to the B&B, were they under contract to Flintshire?
We have some contracts in place with some of our providers, and the idea of that is that we need to lock in a minimum capacity. We also have arrangements with some of the high street chains. We don't tend to mention specific organisations that we work with for homeless accommodation, but we have credit agreements with them. One of the challenges that we have this time of year in particular is displacement of people in hotels as a result of seasonal events, Chester races, an event at Aries Park, a couple of weeks ago, the parade in Liverpool for that football team that I don't like. Yeah. So what we see then is a kind of a ripple effect of prices go up because of demand, because of dynamic pricing. We can only ever book kind of 28 days with some of our hotels in advance, and other people can book like 12 months in advance. Chester races, typical. People go to races in May and then they're booking the hotel for the following year because they had a great day. So we need the block booking contracts that we have in place to lock in some capacity so that we're always protected from too much of that disruption. Those contracts are paid 6 months in advance, reviewed in terms of our demand profile and what our minimum capacity needs to look like. And then we flex from there. So yeah, we do have contracts.
So are we 21 now, extra staff, new staff?
Not quite. I think our total number of staff that we were looking at was from 42 to 72. We've got about 15 in. They're all amazing. I couldn't be any more happy with the people that we've recruited. We did some really good values-based recruitment, really rigorous. We've got a brilliant induction program for everyone, and they're all fantastic additions. We had further recruitment last week for some embedded support workers funded through the HSG to work alongside homeless officers, and we were looking for 4, but we were able to recruit 4 support workers, and another applicant blew the panel away, and we've actually been able to offer them another job within the service as well. So trying to bring 30 members of staff in a short period of time, as much as we'd love to have the capacity grow quickly, they all need training, they all need equipment, they all need mentoring and coaching. The way that we've structured it is a bit of a rolling program, and I think that probably over the next 12 months we may get up to full 72 full-time equivalent capacity, but we may not, because we're always going to have a little bit of turnover of staff. We've got 7 vacancies for homeless officers. The adverts for those are out. We've got 1 additional temporary accommodation officer. Closing date for that, I think, is today, and I think we had about 10 or 11 applicants for that. So when we're doing the recruitment, it's working really, really well. I mentioned before in the HSG report the national campaign around housing and homelessness and the sector. We've also got a really good reputation as a very supportive management team, a good council to work for, and we do the homeless legislation right, and people want to work for us. So we often find that some of our commissioned services staff will leave those commissioned services to come and work for the council because they want to work for us. That creates a little bit of instability within the commission services, but we always kind of give them advance notice that we're doing this recruitment activity. We'll work with you if we are to be appointing to any of our partner agencies' existing workforce. So yeah, recruitment's going really well, really well.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Martin? Councillor Rush, thank you.
Just a quick one, Martin. All the new people that you've taken on, 15 extra people, are they employees of Flintshire? They're not from agencies or anything like that? They're direct for Flintshire?
So, vast majority, I think there's only 2 posts that we've got which are fixed term posts. We've got a data analyst who will be working on our rapid rehousing agenda and strategy, and a rapid rehousing strategic coordinator. So they're 2 fixed term posts. The funding for that used to be grant, but is now within the RSG. So it comes in as part of the overall kind of budget lines for council funds. But we've said to COT and to Cabinet, we want to do those posts, evidence the value and benefit of them, and then review whether we wish to mainstream those posts in the future. The other 28 posts are all full-time permanent council employees. We do have some partner agencies that come in and they're kind of embedded within the service. So they work in the Flint office, but they are commission services, and that's really good for that multi-agency approach that we try and develop. And also we've got a relationship with Shelter Cymru where they have an embedded support worker who's there to kind of sense check some of the work that we're doing, offer advice on complex cases, negotiate and advocate on behalf of residents or landlords in terms of the decisions that we're making. And as referenced in that Neil Morland report, that's a really good practice model, having embedded staff who aren't council employees working alongside us. It all buys into this principle that homelessness is everyone's business and not just the business of the homeless department.
Thank you. Any more questions? Councillor Clayton, thank you.
Chair, I was just be quite interested to know length of time in temporary accommodation, and if there's any particular group of people that are more difficult to move into a permanent accommodation.
Yeah, average waiting times is a fascinating challenge, because we see the numbers skewed significantly because of a lot of our repeat homelessness cases. So those tend to be young people who are maybe living at home with parents, and they have fractious relationships, and from time to time those arrangements with family break down, and maybe we pick them up a little bit, put some interventions in place, support family to manage any challenging behaviours, and then they may move back a week or so later, and that might stabilise. It might break down again at some stage in the future. So cases like that really kind of skew the figures. Same with some of our prison leaver offender cohort. Some of our residents we're working with criminal histories can be revolving door recall cases. So when we look at the average, it's not always that accurate. What we do know is that when the data analyst is in post and she starts on the 7th of July, we've got a data report template for average waiting times that we want to run with. And what we'll do is we'll try and take out some of the repeat homeless cases and try and get a more realistic figure. We know that single people under the age of 50 are waiting the longest. Families do pretty well. They don't wait that long because we have that supply of family homes. That can be complicated a little bit when we have larger families. So that's families that need 4-bed or larger, or families or any households with significant disabilities, therefore requiring specialist accommodation. Those numbers are really small though, but they can distort figures when it comes to reporting on family outcomes or single person outcomes. So hopefully I will have data that we can have confidence at some stage.
Thank you. I've been really interested when the report arrives.
Thank you. Any more questions from anyone? No. Well, just thank you, Martin, for coming here every month. It's really very much appreciated. And I'm so pleased that you like toffee. And we'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much, members. And that's the end of the meeting. Thank you.